Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. Good to see you joining us today. We're glad you're here for our Tuesday morning connection service. It's always an exciting time. This is the day the Lord has made. We came to rejoice and be glad in it. It's also a new day. Let's create the day that we want to experience. And we know that God has something awesome prepared for us today. I came with my notes. I don't write on paper anymore, but I take notes in my phone. And so I come on Tuesday morning to get my sermon from my sister, and then I get up Sunday morning and go, the Lord spoke to me this week. I've been studying all week long. I think we do that to each other. We inspire each other. But we're glad you're here today, and hopefully whether you're working from home or out and about or whatever you're doing, that you are in the right moment, in the right mood, with the Christ mind, ready to receive some new manna today, something fresh from God. God, we thank you today for every blessing that comes from you. God, we thank you for the life, the breath that comes through our body. God, we thank you for new thoughts, for open minds, for empty cups and available space to create in us a clean heart and renew a right spirit within us. For it's in the name and nature of the Christ we pray. They all would say amen, amen, and so it is.
Amen. Okay, I know we just kind of had a prayer, but we're going to do our blessing again. I feel like when it's time to stop this, something will let me know. But until then, we'll continue our blessing that we do, our brobe. I think I've explained to people before what the brobe is, but here we go. Spirit of truth, we come to you today to declare these intentions that we, as a corporate body, are focusing on this year. We have joyful, energetic bodies. We have loving, compassionate hearts. We have restful, alert minds, and we experience lightness of being in all things. It is our intention today and for the rest of this year to replace any resistance, disorder, effort, or struggle with gentleness, clarity, health, eagerness, love, joy, and freedom as our natural state. It is our prayer, our intention, and our heart's desire to be fully awake today and always. We believe it, we perceive it, and now we receive it in the name and nature of the Christ. Amen, and so it is. Okay, so we're going to begin this morning with some quotes, and these are a batch of really, really good ones this week. The first one, light gives of itself freely, filling all available space. It does not seek anything in return. It asks not whether what it shines on is friend or foe. It simply gives of itself and is not thereby diminished. Michael Strassfeld, that was beautiful. Next, 2 things to remember in life. Take care of your thoughts when you are alone, and take care of your words when you are with people. Interesting. Lord said that. She just goes by that one name, I think. Next, it all begins and ends in your mind. What you give power to has power over you if you allow it. Leon Brown. Next, this one is a good one for this time. Conquer the angry man with love. Conquer the ill-natured man with goodness. Conquer the miser with generosity. Conquer the liar with truth. Buddha. Next, the ego is not who you really are. The ego is your self-image. It is your social mask. It is the role you are playing. Your ego thrives on approval. It wants control. We're going to talk a lot about that today. And it is sustained by power because it lives in fear. Okay? Next, light the lantern within yourself instead of putting a match to a candle in the wind. Do not point the light outward, but within. When you look inward, you will discover the princely Buddha within you. Reverend Dr. Soyu Matsuko Roshi. I really like that one because it's talking about the difference between lighting your own internal lantern versus lighting an external source of light or a candle, because an external source of light can be blown out by the wind or by anybody walking by, or it can be taken away from you. But if you learn to light that lantern inside you, which we're also going to talk about today, it is always with you. And that very last part that said, and if you do this, you will find the princely Buddha within you. That speaks to the royalty of Buddha. Before he decided to go on his spiritual quest, I don't know how many of you know this, the Buddha was actually a prince from a royal family. And he decided to renounce his royal status and live the very simple, humble life of a monk. And so we're going to be talking today about royalty because, drum roll please, it is finally Crown Chakra Day, which is why I have on purple. We'll be discussing the concept of the difference between internal and external power and what true royalty really is. Okay, our last quote today is, "Your anger, it's telling you where you feel powerless. Your anxiety, it's telling you that something in your life is off balance. Your fear, it's telling you what you care about. Your apathy, it's telling you where you're overextended and burnt out. Your feelings aren't random, they are messengers. And if you want to get anywhere, you need to be able to let them speak to you and tell you what you really need." Brianna Wiest. Okay. So today, again, will finally be the long-awaited and delayed for 3 weeks wrap-up of our series on the chakras, with the seventh and final chakra, which is the crown chakra. And as anyone who has listened to me teach for very long at all knows, I'm very much into symbolism and making connections between seemingly little things that other people might miss and bringing a meaning to them. So it hasn't been lost on me that the word corona means crown. And I've made the statement before that I think the coronavirus is giving us all an opportunity to understand more about the crown chakra and to strengthen it and use it to make some choices about our present as well as our future, both as individuals and collectively. So today I'm probably going to be doing a little bit of weaving back and forth between talking specifically about the crown chakra and the current events that we're all experiencing in the wake of the pandemic, which has been caused by this coronavirus, as well as the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, which I believe is the new incarnation of the civil rights movement. I can't imagine how those three words, Black Lives Matter, and the sentiment behind those three words could possibly be offensive to anyone who considers themselves a Christ follower or an enlightened person or even a decent human being. I'm not sure why it's such a trigger for a lot of people, but that is not what we're going to talk about today. Maybe we will dig into that a little bit next week. But I just said that because I'm probably going to refer to that later on. We're going to start with a little information about the crown chakra. So this information is from an article entitled, "Here's Everything You Need to Know About Your Seventh Chakra" by Katie Ness. She says, "The seventh chakra is our connector to the divine and our spiritual nature. It also allows for spirituality to integrate into our physical lives. The crown chakra is directly aligned to seek an intimate relationship with the cosmos." I've also heard people call it the bridge to oneness, which I think is beautiful, and that's what our title is today, the bridge to oneness. It's also the chakra of prayer. Why? Because it's how you connect with the divine. It is through this chakra we can transcend all the various dimensions of life and commune with God. On an emotional level, the crown chakra generates devotion, inspirational and prophetic thought, mystical connections, and transcendental ideas. Symbolically, the crown chakra contains the purest form of prana, or life energy, and revolves around the realm of mysticism. Thus, those with a blocked crown chakra are narrow-minded and unable to see the bigger picture. If you've got issues with your crown chakra, that's what's causing it. That's the result of it, They blame others for their crisis or stagnation. They also have a skewed perception of life, death, and spirituality. The crown chakra reminds us that at many points in our lives, we face a crossroads where we need to let an old phase die in order to be reborn again. Now, I can't think of a more timely thing for us to be discussing today than being at a crossroads, having to decide what we're going to let die in order for something new to be born. That speaks exactly to where we are in our world. This is the chakra of humanity. Here we realize we are all in this together, and all our souls are here to learn what it feels like to be in a human body. Again, very relevant to where we are today. Those who cannot connect with others or who do not have an open mind or an open, healthy crown chakra usually suffer from issues related to empathy on a large scale. They can't empathize with other people and their experiences. They are solitary and more often than not are very judgmental towards the beliefs and spirituality, and I'm going to add in today, are oblivious to the rights of other people. The more people who connect with the power of this chakra, the more it will shift our collective consciousness on a massive scale towards a more holistic understanding of health, disease, the environment, biodiversity, and humanity as a whole. So what she's saying is, in order not to be this way as a collective, very judgmental and unsympathetic and not being able to empathize with people and being oblivious to others' rights, in order to not be that way, what it's going to take is a lot of people individually dealing with their crown chakra, and then the more of us as individuals do that, it will help the whole collective shift. Okay? It goes on to say, our goal on this earthly plane is to transcend all illusion and to discover the innate power of spirit. Having a healthy crown chakra helps us realize we are responsible for what we create, and in turn need to learn to act, think, and speak with love and wisdom throughout our lives. A healthy crown chakra helps us remember that all physical and emotional obstacles are just illusions to learn from, and that we must always seek to find the meaning in any situation, follow it, and then let it go once it's no longer relevant. What did we talk about recently? There's no new learning from the second kick of a horse. Once you learn that lesson, let it go. A healthy crown chakra causes us to realize we are our own church, temple, synagogue, or mosque. And all we need do is close our eyes, breathe in, and feel the energy of the divine around us and running through all our chakras. The divine is the origin of our power, and it is the energy that fuels our biology. Once we realize the stuff of which we are made, we have no option but to lead a spiritual life. I thought that was interesting that they said that once you realize who you really are, you can't not be a spiritual person, because you realize that's the whole thing. That's the whole game. Okay. So let's back up now and address a couple of statements she makes here. The first one is having a healthy crown chakra, which is our connection to all things spiritual, the cosmos, our source, God. When that connection is healthy, it helps us to realize that we are responsible for what we create. We've been beating this drum for years and years here now at Spirit. I can't talk today. I think Mercury just went into retrograde. What I meant to say is that's a drum we've been beating for a long time here now at Spirit Entry Sanctuary. I got it out. So let's stop right there and take a look at some of the things that we've created that might not be so healthy. There are a lot of people living in the world right now, which is becoming painfully obvious, who are living in a reality that they have created, but it is a skewed reality. And according to this article, this is the result of a blocked or unhealthy crown chakra. It says those with a blocked crown chakra are narrow-minded and unable to see the bigger picture. They blame others for their crisis or stagnation. They also have a skewed perception of life, death, and spirituality. I want to read something now about an incident that happened back a couple weeks ago over the Memorial Day weekend in the state of Kentucky. That was truly awful. But then I want to talk about why I think it happened and how it relates to what we're talking about today. This is from an article in the Louisville Courier Journal. It says, what started out as a freedom-loving celebration of the Second Amendment ahead of Memorial Day turned into Governor Andy Beshear's image, who was the governor of Kentucky, being hanged in effigy and protesters chanting outside the governor's mansion. So this is the kind of stuff we see happen in third world countries. They actually went to the governor's mansion and hung this image of the governor up on a tree and were chanting. Okay. It began as a celebration of constitutional rights, but turned into a protest of coronavirus restriction and Beshear's administration. So Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky has been one of the governors of several who have been very outspoken and proactive about how he thinks the people in his state should respond to the coronavirus, and he's put a lot of restrictions in place in order to protect people. Pastor, okay, it had to be pastor, didn't it? Pastor Cliff Chrisman said, "This has been one of the biggest shams in world history. Grown men have been hiding in their homes, nearly wetting their pants over this invisible enemy that nobody sees." He's talking about the virus. "Where is it? Let it come out and face us. I serve the one true and living God who conquers all enemies. Why should we give our freedom and our liberties up for such fear and propaganda and all the garbage that is coming out of Frankfurt today?" Frankfurt, of course, being the capital of Kentucky. Another pastor who has sued the governor over a ban on mass gatherings called for dangerous liberty over peaceful slavery. Okay, so what we've got here is some skewed reality on the part of these two pastors and their followers. And the easy thing for us to do would just be to slap a label of ignorant on them and be done with it. But that's not going to solve anything. Labeling people, it's not going to help. So what have we been saying recently? When you come up against or you cross paths with people that you disagree with, it's important to listen and see and try to see where it is they're coming from. And most of the time, skewed reality like this is a mixture of a whole lot of ignorance, but a little bit of truth, because it wouldn't ring true to so many people if it didn't contain just a little bit of truth. So that's what we need to be looking for when we're listening to them, is what is the truth they think they're basing this on. So these people are upset because they feel like their governor is putting unfair restrictions on them, especially related to quarantine and having to stay in their homes and shutting down schools and banning gatherings over a certain number of people, which affects churches, which is why these pastors are upset. This one pastor in particular that made the quote, he believed that the governor should not have shut down churches due to an invisible enemy that nobody sees. Where is it? Let it come out and face us. Okay, so here again, he's referring to the virus as an invisible enemy and implying in a way that because it's something no one can see, we have no reason to be afraid of it, as if it's not real. I mean, if you can't see it, it's not real, which is kind of a dumb thing for someone who makes his living talking about God to say, because that particular line of thinking doesn't really help his case, since his whole gig is pretty much about getting people to believe in something that you can't see. Okay, but all that aside, let's move on. Then he plunges further down the lunacy trail by challenging the virus to some sort of duel or showdown, and says, let it come out and face us. And I'm sure every sane person that was standing around him were saying, wait, what exactly are you calling out? The virus? Let me get this straight. You want the coronavirus to come out and face you like a man. Okay. So that's a level of dumb that's hard to get your head around, just like the people that are drinking bleach and whoever else I mentioned last week that I thought was that level. Granted, I'm not arguing that it's not. But where is the truth in what he's saying, and where did it come from? It's there. It's just skewed. So the next statement he makes is, I serve the one true and living God who conquers all enemies. Why should we give our freedom and liberties up for such fear and propaganda and the garbage that is coming out of Frankfurt today, blah, blah, blah. All right. So the true thing he seems to be basing this protest of his on is that he believes that the God he serves is more powerful than the virus. So he doesn't believe all of the restrictions the governor has put in place in an effort to keep people safe are necessary. It's a skewed point for sure, but there is some truth there. And sometimes when you're looking for common ground with somebody like this, you will take anything you can get, okay? So in an effort, as I said a minute ago, not to just take the easy road and dismiss him and as an ignorant crackpot, let's walk down this road a few steps. Let's walk down his road. Let's put ourselves in his shoes and try to see through his eyes. Now, do I personally believe, as this pastor does, that the God I serve is more powerful than the coronavirus or any virus or any sickness for that matter? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. but believing that God is well able to heal anybody that contracts coronavirus or that he has the power to wipe it out completely is not the issue here. They're missing the issue. Yes, we believe that. That's the truth. The issue is the years and years and years that this man and others before him have been viewing everything in their lives, including spirituality, in terms of a fight. Did you hear you can hear it in his language. He talks about the enemy because of all those years he heard about the devil being the enemy. It is still today the main goal for many Christians to defeat the devil. Okay? But in this case, when he talks about it in this particular scenario, he sounds like a lunatic. Let this virus come out and face us. But where is it coming from? Probably, again, as I said, the many years he sat in Sunday school class being told stories like David and Goliath, with the emphasis being heavily placed upon, David being, I'm going to go fight, is there not a cause? Why are you other soldiers so afraid? Don't you know how powerful our God is? So that's been put in him and a lot of people since they were little. Maybe it came from sitting on church pews, hearing sermons based on scriptures like, and they love not their lives even unto the death. Okay? And then conflating that in their minds with popular historical quotes like, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Which, of course, speaks to having the freedom to choose to die fighting rather than be taken captive in battle and living out the rest of your life as a slave to whoever the conquering people were, which is a choice that many people in ancient times and maybe not so ancient times have had to face. And also, there is a certain truth in that. I remember years ago watching the movie Amistad, and it was about the slave trade. And one of the most touching scenes in that movie, and in any movie I've ever seen, was of a woman who had been captured along with her newborn baby with most of the rest of her whole village in Africa. And the scene was of the slave traders were herding them all onto the ship. And so she was standing in line and she saw what was happening. She saw what was going on. She saw the people in front of her being taken down below deck. And the scene, it was beautifully shot. She looked down. She saw that they were being shackled hand and foot right beside each other. Then she looked out over the ocean. And it's kind of like the realization hit her all of a sudden, wherever we're going, it's not going to be a good life for me and my child. And then she looked down at her baby, and she was such a beautiful actress. You could just see in her face when it hit her, I'm not going to do this. And so she just carefully started taking some steps backward. And when she got to the edge of the ship, she just leaned back and went over. She and her baby, she chose to die. Presumably they drowned or were shot rather than live in a life of slavery. And so I always thought that was such a noble thing, a noble decision for her to make. Being faced with what she was being faced with, she chose death instead of living out her life as a slave, and more importantly, than allowing her child to be enslaved. But while I do believe that was a noble decision, a noble choice, that was a horrible choice for her or anyone else to have to make. No one should have to be faced with that choice. But what are we talking about today? That's the environment, apparently, that the human race has created. That's what we have. That's the reality we've created for ourselves. So I didn't know if I was going to talk about this or not. I didn't write it all out. I'm going to kind of just fly by the seat of my pants here. But remember last week I said I may make this a regular installment of Dear White People. Okay, this is my Dear White People moment right here. So what happened this weekend in Atlanta with the young man, Rayshard Brooks, at the Wendy's? First of all, like I said, I love to put little meaning into things where other people may not see it. I was watching a show one time about subliminal advertising, and I don't know if you've ever realized this, but the Wendy's sign, the little girl with the pigtails, her collar, the blue collar that looks like the collar of her shirt, it actually spells out mom, M-O-M. And they said they did that to subliminally put in your mind when you look at that, oh, this is like home cooking. My mom made this hamburger for me. And so I thought it was particularly significant and symbolic that this happened at a Wendy's because, like I was saying, for so many years, the church, and it has trickled down into other parts of society, has been so masculine energy heavy that our first instinct is to fight that, there was a young man. I don't know the whole story. Either he was asleep or inebriated in a car. He was blocking people. Not a good scenario. However, let's talk about the difference for a minute between the masculine energy of yanking him out of that car, and as he was probably addled and surprised and with everything going on, he's a young African-American man looking in the face of police officers. What did you think he was going to do? So, but in the feminine mom energy would have said, buddy, how can I help you? Are you having an issue? Let me help you get somewhere safer. That would have been the feminine energy. The masculine energy, it was, you're not going to do, you're not. So, and also, dear white people, if there's anybody still watching me that thinks, probably not, but, and I'm real serious about this. Who of you believes truly in your heart, if it had been me in that car, a middle-aged white woman, if it had been even my son, I have a 27-year-old son, the same age as Rayshard Brooks, who believes that my blonde-haired, blue-eyed son would have been treated that way? I don't. It would have never happened. And that's the issue we're dealing with. And, that's why people are setting things on fire. No, I don't condone destroying property. But you know what? It's like I heard somebody say the other day, energy knows how to move through your body. We've talked about this before. When you have strong emotions, you've got to let them move. If you hold them in your body, what does it do? It creates disease. So you got to let it move through your body. Collectively now, there's pain. There's strong emotions. Everybody's tired and hurt and sick of what's been going on. So what we've got to allow for that energy to move through. That's all that's happening with the protest. It's just the energy moving through. So everybody's just got to take a step back and say, you know what? We're just going to let this one go because it's understandable. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make what he did right. But it's just the energy moving through of the times. So dear white people, please give a little space. Give a little space for the emotions to move through. Because I promise you, if we keep them stopped up, or if we just keep punitive, cruel, punishment, if that's the way we choose to handle it, it's not going to move through and go away. It's just going to stay where it is and create more disease. So, that is the end of my Dear White People segment. Now, this choice that I'm talking about to either, die on your feet or live on your knees. I hardly think that this was the choice that was facing this pastor and the others with him in Kentucky, okay? This is a part of his skewed reality that he's conflating this with something as serious as what that woman was facing on the slave ship. It wasn't, but in his mind, it is. All he was being asked to do was stay home for a while, maybe figure out a different way to connect with his members temporarily, but somehow he interpreted that as a threat. Again, maybe because so many legitimate biblical principles had been misinterpreted and taught to him in a skewed way all of his life. For instance, I'm sure in his mind, what he did standing up to the governor was pretty much the same thing as when the 3 Hebrew children had been taken into captivity by King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, and they were like, we will not eat your food. We will not bow to your God. I'm sure in his mind, that's what he was doing. And that was pleasing to God because he was standing up for the cause because of all this skewed reality that's coming from misguided teachings. I'm sure he feels completely justified in his actions. So let me get, the main point is all that is due to an unhealthy crown chakra because his connection to God, he's got a skewed view of it. He's not viewing it in a clear way. He doesn't know, he's got a very skewed view of what it means to be a Christian. So when I talk about the masculine energy, I want to just interject this here. I'm not blaming anything on men, okay? As we've talked about before, masculine energy is not exclusive to men. All of us have both masculine and feminine energy within us. The masculine energy is what determines how we go after things, how we assert ourselves, and the way in which we feel strong and powerful. So in other words, the masculine energy is all about where we believe our power comes from, which is very key. When you've been taught all your life that your power comes from an external source, even if that source is God, then it's easy, like I said, for that theology to kind of trickle over and translate into other areas of your life. For instance, that's why so many people believe that their personal power or their quality of life is dependent on whoever's in the White House, or in this case, whoever's in the governor's mansion, in the story we were just discussing. So the reason so many people are up in arms right now about what the government is doing is because they believe the government has power over them. And so when they feel that the government is taking something away from them or limiting their freedom or otherwise mistreating them, then they get terribly upset and they have an inappropriate response. Bishop Carlton Pearson talks about sin, the concept of sin being an inappropriate response to a legitimate need. Yes, the response is inappropriate, but the need is legitimate. Something deep down inside these people is telling them they should be the sovereign creator of their own life. That's the legitimate part. Something is telling them that, yes, the God I serve is more powerful than this virus. That's the legitimate part. But their response to these truths, seemingly being threatened, is inappropriate because their reality is skewed and out of balance from the decades upon decades of wrong thinking, wrong teaching, and wrong believing, which has caused their connection to source to be out of balance. So when people have been taught to believe that all their power is outside of them, then they also believe they must be allowed to gather in a building to hear a man speak in order to connect with God, because they can't get that on their own, okay? Because everything's external. So if I can't see my pastor and hear him, then I'm done for, and you are taking away a freedom of mine. So let's go back to our information about the crown chakra for a minute. A healthy crown chakra helps us remember that all physical and emotional obstacles are just illusions to learn from, and that we must always seek to find the meaning in any situation, follow it, and then let it go once it's no longer relevant. A person with a healthy crown chakra, with a healthy connection to source, can see this pandemic for what it is, a lesson trying to teach us all something. A person with a healthy crown chakra can look for the meaning of being quarantined rather than viewing it as a freedom that's being taken away from them. A healthy crown chakra causes us to realize we are our own church, temple, synagogue, or mosque. And all we need to do is close our eyes, breathe in, and feel the energy of the divine around us, running through all our chakras. The divine is the origin of our power, and it is the energy that fuels our biology. Okay, I want to read one more piece to you by our good friend Andrew Martin, which I read to you from him a lot, about what he describes as the shift from power to authority. Now, the only thing that bothers me just a little bit about this article is, but he does explain it pretty well, but the word power to me is a positive word, all my life. And again, that's part of my conditioning. We've learned about the power of the Holy Spirit, so to me, power is something positive. And in this article, he kind of pits it against authority as if it is negative. But I like to think of it more, and as you're listening, if you'll think of it more, and I've tried to insert a little bit of explanation here, force. When he says power, what he's actually talking about is force, okay? So, he says, in the midst of the intensity of this, of this time we are in now, we are experiencing rebirth and reawakening in a way that is mind-blowing. This shift is one of the most important ones I've seen in my lifetime, and the shift I'm talking about is the shift from power to authority. Power, in this context, is measured by control. It is the old world idea of power over another or a group of others by control, whether it's physical or psychological, mental or emotional. It is astoundingly clear that this shift is occurring when you step back and observe the links to which the old power structures, often referred to as the powers that be, those who are seemingly in charge will go to remain in control and to maintain their grip on the power they have. But power is falling. Power is collapsing. And what I mean by that is the power over another concept. Authority is where we are headed. And authority is what this shift is all about. Because authority and sovereignty are two sides of the same coin. When you are the author, I love this part, which is the same root word as authority. When you are the author of your own experience, you don't need to have power over another. When you are the one writing and creating your own experience, then you are the one who gets to call the shots from the seat of sovereignty, which is your divine birthright. All of your creative abilities are fully unlocked when you trust yourself to create according to your truth. Power is force. Force is finite. Okay, remember, you can only hold somebody down for so long. Force is external. And the desire for power in this context of power as force is based on me believing you have something that I don't have access to. Okay, so in other words, people only want power because they believe someone else has access to something and that they don't have access to, and so they've got to gain power over that person or that institution or that situation in order to get it. And what he's saying is, no, when you're walking in authority, you know you have all that power within you. You're writing your own story. You don't need to have power over them because they don't have anything that you need. Okay, so this is exactly what we've been talking about, this overly masculine approach to everything that's been the hallmark of our existence for centuries now. He says, authority requires only a connection to self and the divinity that is contained within yourself. Power/force says, energy must be controlled and manipulated in order for me to get what I want. And if that involves me taking something from you, then so be it. Authority says, energy always serves me, so my only job is to align with it. Authority is self-sustaining. Authority is its own ecosystem that feeds and nurtures and creates itself. Authority says, I am here because I choose to be. So, do you see how this concept of authority has more of a feeling of the feminine balance to the masculine? It's not that we don't need the masculine. It's just that the masculine needs to be balanced out a little bit by this feminine feeling of balance. I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago in his sermon, my brother said something to the effect of winning people over through the love of Jesus instead of the fear of hell. Okay, so that fear approach of, if you don't do this, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to physically restrain you or punish you. That's that very masculine energy. Sometimes that's needed, but it's always got to be balanced by this feminine approach of, no, let's try to approach it from, let's draw people by love rather than fear. Masculine energy, when it's all by itself with no balance, is punitive. It punishes wrong and wrongdoers. Feminine energy is purgative. It is more about teaching the wrongdoers what they're doing wrong and then showing them how they can change it and do it more effectively. Okay, back to Andrew Martin. Because power requires you to control or manipulate or take from another, it is inauthentic. It's just taking something that doesn't belong to you and can just as easily be taken from you. It's just you trying to force another to abide by the rules you think they need to abide by. Authority is completely different because it is infinite and eternal. Authority says, what on earth could you possibly do to me? Or, I'm going away from Andrew now, as Paul said in Philippians, to live is Christ and to die is gain. Authority is going to that place where you are so confident in how you are living and moving and having your being that it no longer matters to you whether you live or die. Because either way, you're going to live your truth by your principles, which all comes back to our free will and our power to make a choice. It's a choice that to make the statement, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. But instead of that choice being made from this skewed, masculine, heavy place of, you don't tell me what to do, you're not going to take my guns away from me, instead of it coming from that place, it's coming from a totally different place inside of, this is my choice because I'm a sovereign being. And I know that dying, I don't see death as a punishment. If I die on my own terms, it's not a punishment, it is a choice. So it's a subtle difference, but it's there. So power uses the threat of death as the ultimate weapon. I will take your life from you if you don't obey me. But authority, because it is eternal in nature, is not afraid of death. That's the difference. Okay, back to the final part of Andrew. Power is for those who are disconnected from their own source of divinity. Power is for those who have bought into the notion that they were born in sin and shaped in iniquity and are unworthy. Authority is when you know no one else has the power to keep you from your connection to source. Authority is when you believe and understand that you were born because you chose to be born, that you are here because you choose to be here, and when you leave the realm of this physical existence, this life, it will also be because you choose to, and the powers that be have no say in it. This is what it means to move from power to authority. And that, my friends, is what the ultimate healthy crown chakra looks like. It's when you're so connected to the divine within you that you don't rely on anything external to be your source. Not your job, not your spouse, not your pastor, not your doctor, not your president, not your governor. What you rely on is your ability to connect to source. What you rely on is the connection, okay? That you can always connect to the source, no matter what the situation is. Okay, so that is all the information I have about the crown chakra. I hope that I didn't jump around too much. I want to close today with our crown chakra affirmation that I want you to say this week. If we've got it up, okay, let's say it together. Say it with me at home. I am fully awake in every moment. I am connected to my higher self. I am part of the divine, and I am in touch with the divine within me. I connect to the divine in others without the unhealthy thought that they are my source. I am pure consciousness. I am pure light. I am pure love. Thank you very much. I love everybody. Hope to see you very, very soon in person. And here is my brother.
Somebody get those hands up and tell him thank you in Jesus' name. That was awesome. What a great teaching. The crown chakra. We're going to give a few shouts out before we close today. But we wanted to say, I wanted to say, in my journey, one of the greatest examples of someone walking in true authority and wielding their power lightly is Jesus the Christ. You know, carrying all of the power that he had in such a giving way. Even the teachings, of saying the greatest among you should serve. That being a servant is the greatest power that you could have. I grew up with depictions of Jesus washing the disciples' feet. What a moment of power and authority. And then one of my favorite stories is when Jesus was teaching, and the Hellenist, an early religious group, didn't really receive his teaching. They didn't agree with what he was saying. And Peter, James, and John said, Jesus, would you like for us to call down fire from heaven, as Elijah did, and destroy them? Which was an improper use of power. And Jesus rebuked them and actually said to them, you don't even know what manner of spirit you're of. You're not in my, that's not how I would operate. I've come to save men's lives, not to destroy them. And that means if they're not ready to receive this teaching, they're still in their journey. Let them process. It's not the right time. But for me, I'm so grateful that I was raised both in religious circles that taught a lot about really even use authority the wrong way at times, trying to dominate people's lives and make all their decisions for them. But also in all of that negative teaching, I was raised in a positive teaching of who Jesus was, and really learning to wield his power and authority in a way that served people, not forced anything on people. And so we're grateful today for the crown chakra. And I didn't wear my purple today, but I brought my crown royal. Is that okay, LaDonna? Toast to everybody today. I didn't bring it, but John Reed did. I saw him come in with it. No, I'm joking. All right, we want to give a few shouts out to all the people that we love today. And we're glad that you joined us today for such a powerful teaching. Miss Emma, Justina, David, Michael, Lenora, Gloria, Elaine, Elita, Doreen, Rosaline, Sheila, Myrna, Sylvia, wow, Regina, Rob Moffat, are you kidding me? Remember Rob Moffat? That's a blast from the past. Hey, Rob. Lovey, Susan, Reverend Dr. Jesse Harriet. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Bobby, Miss Bobby Howard, Shirley, Dr. Shirley Reams, Terry, Tracy, Dawn, Teresa, Olivia, Callie, Courtney, Amy, Pastor Cassius, Melanie, Dana, and Hannah. And I think Brandy's still doing some YouTube testing on our new YouTube channel. And it was successful again today. And she said coming soon to Sundays, to Wednesdays and Sundays, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday. I think Mary Hayes was helping us test that today, Brandy and Esther. And then finally Charles Knowles also. And so we're glad you joined us today. We're glad that you're getting in touch with your crown chakra. We hope today that you learned the difference in power and authority. I want to leave you with a Jimi Hendrix quote, if that's okay. Jimi Hendrix said, "When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will finally know peace." And so we hope that that's something that's shifting right now. We see it. We are surveying it. And so now it's time to shift it. Let's shift this thing. Let's let this new creation, this new heaven and this new earth come to and through us. And so we pray that you have a great week. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. I'm so excited. We begin a new series tomorrow night. We've been in You Can Heal Your Life since March. September of last year. We ended it. But on September 11th, we began, on 9/11, we began You Can Heal Your Life. And so it's been that long in that series. So we are beginning tomorrow night, The Power of Now. Wow, Eckhart Tolle. It's a very, very powerful book, maybe teaching us how to really, truly hone our authority and to wear that authority lightly. I did want to tell you one quick story before we leave. There's one of my favorite movies is it's about Robin Hood and King Arthur, and it's called First Night. It's Richard Gere and Sean Connery. It's just a very, very powerful story. But the whole theory behind Camelot is that those who were the knights and in some type of leadership, they sat at a round table, not at a table where there was a head and a tail and different levels, a caste system of authority or power, but they all came to this round table where their voices were heard. Everyone had a chance to share from their voice. And so I believe, to me, that's the beginning of how the kingdom of God looks, that we share with each other, that all this idea of being in charge or this caste system of, I know we're still got a few minutes, so y'all bear with me, but I was at one of our conferences that we did years ago, and this was really something that we created that we had to deal with. The whole idea of you have your deacon, usher, caregiver, then you have your pastors, then you have your senior pastor, then you have your bishop, then you have your archbishop, and you just keep going up further and further this kind of corporate, religious ladder. And, we didn't think it was really harmful. We just thought maybe it was about structure and authority and learning, how to do things. And really probably it was just a lack of awakening the divine in each person so that they could learn to govern their own lives. But I came across a gentleman that was from another country, and he introduced himself as Archbishop so-and-so. And I said, "Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. Tell me about your College of Bishops and, all the churches that you oversee." And he said, "I don't have a College of Bishops. I don't oversee other churches." And I said, "Well, why are you called Archbishop then?" He said, "Oh, well, isn't Archbishop like higher than Bishop?" And so I said, "Well, I just don't think it works quite that way." You can't just go, I called it first. I call shotgun, Archbishop, I got it, But as much as it was kind of funny to me, it was also sad that from maybe his country, seemingly somewhere that he felt powerless to create his own reality, he had taken on, watch this, the power structure that we had created in our own church. And I had to take a step back and say, he didn't just decide this one day. He got this from somewhere. And so you can tell with me, I kind of resist all that. I've got pastors all over the country. DE, it's time for you, Bishop-elect, it's time for you to take your rightful place as bishop. I said, look, I got some grass to cut, dude. I got some walls to paint. I've got some people to pastor. We're waking up together. We don't need all this. I don't need a special parking space. I tell people all the time, you want a great parking space? Just come early. How about that? You want to park up close? You can have any parking space you want. Just come early if you need a reserved parking space, We're not just Christians. Watch this. We're trying to be like Christ. Servant leadership, learning to serve each other. And in serving each other, Camelot, we become powerful. That's where our greatness is. And so we're thankful for the crown chakra today and for the feminine energy. I'm all in touch with my feminine side. I'm about to go have a big old chef salad, LaDonna, and some hummus. Forget the ribs and fried chicken today. I'm getting in touch with my feminine nature. But we love you guys. We hope you have a great week. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Go in peace. May God bless you.